Hello everybody, you're welcome back again to the Reggae Appreciation Society. Every time we talk about the greatest ladies in the history of reggae, we always mention the likes of Rita Marley and Martha Griffiths for roots reggae and ace DJ Sister Nancy for dancehall. But there is almost always an unforgivable omission of the beautiful, highly talented and delightful Susan Cadogan, Jamaica's queen of the soft sentimental side of reggae that we all know as lovers rock. Her delicate, breezy and sensuous voice was the perfect tone for that subgenre, which is dedicated to matters of the heart, and it would catapult her to an overnight success internationally long before she knew it. For many people who grew up around the same time I did, we had mothers, aunties or neighbors who were big fans of this lady, and her music would form part of the sonic landscape of our formative early years. But for all her popularity and superstardom, the last thing this preacher's daughter really wanted was to become world famous. In fact, her entire foray into becoming a recording artist was by accident, as she was fully invested in her 9-to-5 job as a librarian until her paths would cross with none other than the great Lee Scratch Perry. It was indeed Perry who would lead her into the industry under his wing and would guide her into global acclaim at the very time that reggae music was still finding its footing outside Jamaica as a bona fide genre of its own. She found herself an instant superstar with all the trappings of a celebrity, but very far from what normally happens in the music business. This girl next door from Kingston would reject all the temptations to become an industry diva and would follow her own path, navigating the treacherous waters of the recording industry on her own terms. But what really happened? Let's take a look at the story of Susan Cadogan, the reluctant queen of lovers rock. Interestingly, her name isn't Susan, as she was born Alison Ann Cadogan on the 2nd of November 1951 in Kingston to her preacher father, Reverend Claude Cadogan, and her mother, Lola Cadogan, a trained classical soprano singer who had put out gospel records of her own. Her family moved to Belize while she was still a toddler, but moved back to Jamaica at the end of 1950s, and she would attend the St. Andrews High School for Girls and Excelsior College in Kingston. As the daughter of a pastor and a mother who was a professional singer, music was in her blood, and singing her number one hobby. And though she had no plans to do anything with it, she would over time develop a wonderful sweet voice. After graduating, she found a job as a librarian in the University of West Indies, an occupation she loved and was very content with. But at home, she loved to sing along to soul R&B classics from artists like the Supremes, Ben E. King, and Diana Ross. She didn't know it yet, but this prepared her for an amazing opportunity. Her best friend Teresa, who worked at the Jamaican Broadcasting Corporation, was dating a colleague who was heavily into music and had written a song called Love My Life. This guy called Jerry Lewis wanted his girlfriend Teresa to sing it as she had a good voice, and when he told her, his girlfriend suggested that they bring Alison along as backup. So one fine day in 1974, she and her friend Teresa went into the recording booth to lay their vocals, and at the consoles was a diminutive and eccentric producer with a big smile on his face. Her friend developed stage fright and couldn't sing, so she would end up singing it all by herself. And when it was over, that producer was impressed with her voice and introduced himself as Lee Scratch Perry. He told her he was interested in recording her on a few more songs, and she, being very crazy about singing, jumped at it in a heartbeat, even though she never heard of him. The in thing in those days for Jamaican producers was recording reggae covers of hot American R&B tunes, and Perry gave her some cassettes to go and listen to and practice with. And from that day, he christened her with the more marketable stage name of Susan. So over the next few weeks, she would balance her day job at the university and in the evening go to the studio to record several songs. And some of these were nice and easy, Shame Shame with eventual third world singer Bonnie Ruggs, and a cover of a Millie Jackson song called Hurt So Good with the Mighty Diamonds on backup vocals. These songs got minimal airplay in Jamaica, but Perry's affiliation to UK record labels saw Hurt So Good in particular explode in popularity over there. The song found its way into the playlists of a DJ at the 1974 edition of the popular Notting Hill Carnival, and it became the reigning song at the festival in that year. And from there, it flew into number 1 on UK's reggae charts in record time. Hurt So Good was a soulful and dreamy love song that hit Britain at the perfect time. 1974 was the year Louisa Marks' song Caught You in a Lie became a hit in that country with black British teenagers. These children of Caribbean immigrants were looking for love songs that they could slow dance to at parties, and this demand inspired the birth of lovers rock, and as fate would have it, Hurt So Good landed at the perfect time. got picked up by a label called Magnet Records and would rocket into the UK singles pop charts. Meanwhile, back home, Susan was doing her thing in her 9-to-5 day job with no idea that she was a big star in England. So she was shocked when she began to get calls to come to Britain to make appearances on legendary BBC music show Top of the Pops. And before you could say Susan, she was flown out in first class and put up in a luxury hotel for 3 months as her song would peak at number 4 in the UK charts. That was a good thing on the surface, but it marked the end of her collaboration with Lee Scratch Perry. Now in the UK, she was taken under the wing of legendary producer Peter Waterman of the famous production team Stock Aitken and Waterman, who produced her debut album Doing It Her Way in 1975. But a legal battle erupted between the Magnet label and Trojan Records over who owned the rights to Susan's music, and eventually Trojan won it in court. As a much bigger label with plenty of muscle, they promoted Susan in a massive marketing drive to promote her next album in the self-titled Susan Cadogan. It all seemed flashy on the surface, but in no time she got disillusioned with the numerous interviews, photo shoots, screaming fans, and endless beauty makeovers, as she was naturally a simple and shy lady, and by 1977 she was terribly homesick. She called it a day and quit, and returned home to Jamaica that same year. Amazingly, she was a star in the UK, but largely unknown back home, and would go back to the comfortable routine of a 9-to-5 job at the library in the university. However, singers are like boxers in that they just love to make comebacks, and 5 years later, in 1982, she returned with the cover of the Smokey Robinson soul classic Tracks of My Tears, plus 2 other songs, In Piece of My Heart and Love Me, which all became hits in Jamaica. Roots reggae and its serious messaging had by then given way to the hood lyrics of dancehall and the love language of lovers rock, and she scored her first #1 hit in Jamaica with Feel So Good in 1983, a duet with singer Roddy Thomas. The queen of lovers rock was back, and the pair followed that up with a follow-up smash hit in Only Heaven Can Wait. Her hot streak continued into 1984 with 2 major hits in Cause You Love Me Baby and Don't Know Why. But just as suddenly as she had burst back into the scene, she would disappear from the music industry all over again. As the story goes, she was deeply upset at having so many hits in the charts but not seeing any money, as producers would continually take advantage. So once again, Susan Cadogan would go back to her 9-to-5 job, this time seemingly for good. But her love for singing, plus the then rising demand for her music, saw her return after almost a decade for a collaboration with British producer Matt Professor in 1992 for the wonderful album Soulful Reggae. She would record a slew of songs with Matt Professor, plus a duet with U-Roy on her old hits Heard So Good. She's continued to make music and has put out several albums since then, with the most recent in Dub Showcase from 2023. And I'm really glad for one thing, and that's the fact that, unlike in the past, she's more in control of all her current projects, as she's now a legend and veteran in the business. Susan Cadogan is still in heavy demand by producers in America and Europe and concert promoters all over the globe. And I noticed that all her shows in recent years are filled with youngsters in their teens and early 20s, a demographic still discovering the immortal works of this wonderful singer. And from what I can see, 2026 is going to be a very busy year on the touring circuit, as she's already been booked for a number of concerts in America and England. She's still not a fan of all the shenanigans in the music business, but I'm glad to see that she's at least now more comfortable with being regarded as the Empress of Lovers Rock. Long live the Queen. So there you have it. Thank you for watching this video today. Please leave a like, subscribe, and until next time, God bless.